Saint Augustine, Commentary on the Gospel of John, chapter 7, verse 25 to 36, following. In short, that you may know that the words refer not to the necessity of his dying, but to his power. I speak this for the sake of some who, when they hear his hour was not yet come, are determined on believing in fate, and their hearts become infatuated, that you may know then that it was his power of dying. Recollect the passion, look at him crucified. While hanging on the tree he said, I thirst. They, having heard this, offered to him on the cross vinegar by a sponge on a reed. He received it and said, It is finished, and bowing his head, gave up the ghost. You see his power of dying, that he waited for this, until all things should be fulfilled that had been foretold concerning him, to take place before his death. For the prophet had said, They gave me gall for my meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Psalm 69, verse 21. He waited for all these things to be fulfilled. After they were completed, he said, It is finished. And he departed by power, because he came not by necessity. Hence some wondered more at this, his power to die, than at his ability to work miracles. For they came to the cross to take the bodies down from the tree, for the Sabbath was drawing near, and the thieves were found still living. The punishment of the cross was so much the harder because it tortured men so long, and all that were crucified were killed by a lingering death. But the thieves, that they might not remain on the tree, were forced to die by having their legs broken, that they might be taken down thence. The Lord, however, was found to be already dead. John chapter 19, verse 28 to 33. And the men marveled, and they who despised him when living so wondered at him when dead, that some of them said, Truly this was the Son of God. Matthew chapter 27, verse 54. Whence also that, brethren, where he says to those that seek him, I am he, and they going backward all fell to the ground. John chapter 18, verse 6. Consequently, there was in him supreme power, nor was he forced to die at an hour, but he waited the hour on which his will might fittingly be done, not that on which necessity might be fulfilled against his will. But many of the people believed on him. The Lord made whole the humble and the poor. The rulers were mad, and therefore they not only did not acknowledge the physician, but even were eager to slay him. There was a certain crowd of people which quickly saw its own sickness, and without delay recognized his remedy. See what that very crowd, moved by his miracles, said, When Christ comes, will he do more signs than these? Surely unless there will be two Christs, this is the Christ. Consequently, in saying these things, they believed on him. But those rulers, having heard the assurance of the multitude, and that murmuring noise of the people in which Christ was being glorified, sent officers to take him, him not yet willing to be taken. Because then they could not take him while he would not, they were sent to hear him teaching. Teaching what? Then said Jesus, Yet a little while I am with you. What you wish to do now you will do, but not just now, because I am not just now willing. Why am I now as yet unwilling? Because yet a little while I am with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. I must complete my dispensation, and in this manner come to my suffering. You shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither you can't come. Here he was already foretold. Here he has already foretold his resurrection, for they would not acknowledge him when present, and afterwards they sought him when they saw the multitude already believing on him. For great signs were wrought, even when the Lord was risen again and ascended into heaven. Then mighty deeds were done by his disciples, but he wrought by them as he wrought by himself, since indeed he had said to them, Without me you can do nothing. John chapter 15, verse 5. When that lame man who sat at the gate rose up at Peter's voice and walked on his feet, so that men marveled, Peter spoke to them to this effect, that it was not by his own power that he did this, but in the virtue of him whom they slew. Acts chapter 3, verse 2 to 16. Many pricked in the heart said, What shall we do? For they saw themselves bound by an immense crime of impiety, since they slew him whom they ought to have revered and worshipped. And this crime they thought inexpiable. A great wickedness indeed it was, the thought of which might make them despair. Yet it did not behove them to despair, for whom the Lord, as he hung on the cross, deigned to pray. For he had said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke chapter 23, verse 34. He saw some who were his own among many who were aliens. For this he sought pardon, from whom at the time he was still receiving injury. He regarded not that he was being put to death by them, but only that he was dying for them. It was a great thing that was forgiven them. It was a great thing that was done by them and for them, so that no man should despair of the forgiveness of his sin when they who slew Christ obtain pardon. Christ died for us, but surely he was not put to death by us. But those men indeed saw Christ dying by their own villainy, and yet they believed on Christ pardoning their villainies. Until they drank the blood they had shed, they despaired of their own salvation. Therefore said he this, You shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am you can't come. Because they were to seek him after the resurrection, being pricked in their heart with remorse. Nor did he say, Where I will be, but where I am. For Christ was always in that place whither he was about to return. For he came in such manner that he did not depart from that place. Hence he says in another place, No man has ascended into heaven, but he who came down from heaven, the Son of Man who is in heaven. John chapter 3, verse 13. He said not who was in heaven. He spoke on the earth and declared that he was at the same time in heaven. He came in such wise that he departed not thence, and he so returned as to not abandon us. What do you marvel at? This is God's doing. For man as regards his body is in a place, and departs from a place, and when he comes to another place he will not be in that place whence he came. But God fills all things, and is all everywhere. He is not held in places according to space. Nevertheless, the Lord Christ was as regards his visible flesh on the earth, as regards his as regards his invisible majesty, he was in heaven and on earth. And therefore he says, where I am, thither you can come. Nor did he say, you shall not be able, but you are not able to come. For at that time there were such as were not able. And that you may know that this was not said to cause despair, he said something of the same kind also to his disciples, whither I go, you can come. John chapter 13, verse 33. Yet while praying in their behalf, he said, Father, I will that where I am, they also may be with me. John chapter 17, verse 24. And finally, this he expounded to Peter and says to him, whither I go, you can't not follow me now, but you shall follow me hereafter. John chapter 13, verse 36.